All right, I'm with Clayton Fisher of IDEX Metals. The symbol is IDEX, IDEX on the TSX Venture. Clayton, how are you?
I'm doing great, Robert. How you doing?
Great. After reading this news release, fantastic news this morning from you guys. A lot to unpack here, a lot of new targets I haven't heard of before. North Breccia. So hole 6 is giving us some really important data with the molybdenum increasing at depth. And there's a lot of signs we're getting warmer towards the bottom of this hole. So tell us about hole 6 and what you learned.
Yeah, and thanks again for having me on this morning. Always great to come on. Yeah, so hole 6. I mean, we're really excited, and like we said in the past news release and this news release today, is that what we're seeing at the bottom of the hole for the first time is a large concentration of intrusive mineralization that's coming in as we move down hole. We're seeing QSP alteration, quartzite alteration, along with deveining, molybdenite and chalcopyrite occurring at the same time, and molybdenum really occurring as molybdenite increasing with depth. So as we get to the bottom of the hole, we're seeing up to almost 700 ppm moly, which is really incredible to see. And as I'm sure you're aware, it's a vectoring element when you're trying to hone in on that heat source, which aka a porphyry in this instance. So it's very encouraging for us. And the hole got cut short, but we're excited to get back out there for the 2026 season and pick up right where we left off. So that's the key takeaway in this press release today is, bottom of hole 6, very exciting, moly increasing, some of the highest moly grades we've seen so far in the project. And then obviously we tie that into the geophysical anomaly that we'll talk about. And, we've got a really good recipe and a perfect setup for going into the 2026 drill season.
Yeah, so just to backtrack to the start of the 2025 program, you started at Kismet. We thought it was a Breccia pipe, or at least that's sort of interpretation that we made up based upon some stuff from the past. You drilled it. It's not a pipe, but it's a Breccia. It's a Breccia, and it's extensive. And you drilled some pretty high-grade copper in oxides near surface in multiple holes. But your investigation led you further along this corridor to the north. And the program was completed on hole 6, which is a pretty big step out. I don't know, you can tell us, is it 400 meters, 500 meters? It's a big step out. And all of a sudden, it looks like at the bottom of this hole, this last hole of the season, it looks like you're getting into a porphyry.
Yeah, that's correct. And, it was a 340 meter step out from hole 1 and pad 1. And it was more of an exploratory hole based on the geophysical data that we got back in real time as we were drilling. We went back to pad 1 to drill hole 5 to show that, this Kismet Breccia Complex, as we're now calling it, that it extends to the east. And we did show that. So we're showing mineralization extending to about 135, 150 meters to the east. But then we wanted to show that, we can push the Breccia even further north. As we got the geophysical data last year while we were drilling, we decided to move our drill rig 340 meters to pad 5 and drill straight north, because a large resistive low anomaly was sitting about 200 meters below the surface. So the pad that we had constructed, the furthest north that we had the pad was pad 5 at the time. And so drilling north, we could push as hard and far as we could at about a -50. And we wanted to try and get to that anomaly. Unfortunately, the hole went to about 400 something meters. We lost it short just due to mechanical issues and challenging rock conditions at the time, because we're as you're drilling north at a -50, it's a pretty shallow angle. So unfortunately, it wasn't efficient to get all the way to that anomaly. But to start this year, you know, we're building out a road and a new pad that'll sit on top of that North Breccia, so we can attack the anomaly from straight down, because that anomaly is sitting only, you know, we're interpreting anywhere from 3 to 800 meters below the surface.
Yeah, so that's what I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about the figure in the news release that shows the MT anomaly at depth at North Breccia, and it shows hole 6. So I guess hole 6 was drilled at a pretty flat angle, but also there's a bit of a change in the elevation there, the topographic surface. So I guess you'll move farther along that to is it the northwest?
Yeah, it's northwest from Kismet, and we'll move towards onto the other side of the creek on top of the Breccia. And you'll see in the press release kind of topographically is that, you know, you get through the creek and you come back up the other side, and that's where the North Breccia actually sits, and it's outcropping its surface right there. So we'll go on the other side of the creek. It's probably 800 meters away, and then set up a new pad there. And then we'll build a series of pads up going along that corridor to the north as well. So we'll have a few others so we can properly test that anomaly, because it expands probably in the subsurface at least a couple kilometers wide.
So the MT anomaly starts at, you know, it's interpreted, it starts about 300 or so meters from the topographic surface, but it extends to some considerable depths. I mean, this looks like it could be well over 1,000 meters to the bottom of it. How confident are you in that interpretation that those are the depths?
We're fairly confident those are the depths. But what we're seeing, we've learned from the MT this past season, and is that, you know, it's not a guarantee that, you know, if you drill into that really low sub 100 ohm kind of resistive level, that you're going to encounter a high concentration of sulfides. You don't really know. What we're seeing from holes 1 through 5 is that we're actually seeing a higher copper grades in that 200 to 400 ohm range. So from when we're looking for the porphyry drilling down, and that's why we say, you know, the porphyry could be anywhere from 300 to 800 meters, is that that kind of 200 to 400 ohm range starts around that 300 meter level. So the porphyry center could actually be that kind of concentration of red that you see, and then the higher grade copper surrounding it on the outside. So we're not totally sure where that high grade copper zone will occur, and we're interpreting that it could start in that 200 to 400 ohm range all the way down to, you know, sub 100 potentially. We're not totally sure, and that's what we're going to drill test next year. Is that we'll drill one deep hole, well, a couple deep holes straight down into the anomaly. It'll test kind of every resistive zone, and that'll give us a better interpretation for our drill targeting going forward as well. So we'll have a really good idea, you know, as we move forward and up the Kismet corridor, and then also exploring throughout the rest of the property. It'll help us target our drilling a little bit better. You know, if we find out that, hey, this kind of porphyry mineralization is contained in that 200 to 400 ohm level, then that just makes our drilling that much more efficient. We can go out, and with all the MT data that we have now, that we can look at our targets and be like, okay, Olive Creek, that's what it's looking like in this range, and then we can hit those targets appropriately. And then we tie that into the IP as well, which also, you know, kind of gives a second evidence of that, in fact, that, hey, this is a really good target. If you have a resistive low that corresponds with a targetable high, then, you know, you're in really good shape. So that's ultimately what we're trying to find, and that's what that kind of Kismet corridor, or the anomaly right underneath Kismet and the North Breccia is, where the North Breccia is looking like right now, is that kind of low resistive anomaly that coincides with a highly chargeable signature as well. So we're excited.
Yeah, no, this is very exciting. I mean, I think hole 6 is the most interesting one today. I know it's not the highest grade overall, but I think it has the biggest potential to lead to something quite substantial in terms of a new discovery. Let's talk a little bit about what you wrote in the news release about hole 6. So the last paragraph about hole 6 talks about localized potassic alteration that's been overprinted by phyllic alteration. And also we can see in the assay table, the moly is really kicking up. I mean, obviously I cover the Idaho copper belt like the back of my hand. I've looked at every single hole that's been drilled. This is the highest moly I've seen in any drill intercept by any company in the district. Tell us about that, the moly really kicking up there. What are your, geos telling you?
Well, they're telling us that we're getting close to the heat source. So, and that's the biggest thing here is that, that molybdenite veining or sulfides and veining is special, and it comes directly from an intrusive phase that is, coming from a porphyry or a heat source nearby. So the fact that every single one of our holes, as we get down towards depth, that moly increases as we get to depth, that's very encouraging. It means you're getting closer and closer to that heat source. The fact that hole 6, as we push out towards that anomaly that we're talking about, the fact that the moly is increasing so much, especially after we move through that pyrite halo, or what we interpret to be a pyrite halo, which was about 150 meters wide, mind you, as well. So after we got through that pyrite halo, we got into these sulfides, and that included the molybdenite and the chalcopyrite occurring in these D veins. And that, it was, the core itself is beautiful. It's this purpley, metallic, shiny stuff, and very similar to what we showed in our last press release for hole 3, where we're seeing those like big strips of moly veins, and it's beautiful core. And we were lucky enough to be on site for one of these core boxes to be opened up, and the geos, to say the least, were very excited and very encouraged. They're all huddling around the boxes and getting in there, and it's very encouraging for sure. And what you want to see, and it's the case where it keeps us coming back for more, and it's a reason to follow up drilling. It's a reason to go back, test that anomaly. It's not just an anomaly on a screen anymore. We're backing it up with IP data, MT data, the surface, sampling that we've done. And now our drilling data is showing us all the same thing, and tying it all together is kind of screaming at us that, hey, this is a porphyry target. We're pretty sure you guys need to go out there and test this right away. So yeah, we're excited, to say the least.
So you know exactly where you're going to drill the first hole of the 2026 program.
Yeah, we do. Pretty much. And we'll step right up on top of that breccia and pretty much drill straight down. And it'll be a deep hole to start it off, and we'll probably do a couple of them, and just to test a couple different areas. But again, we're anticipating a very similar mineralogy as you work your way down, is that we'll have this large oxide layer at the top of the hole, we believe, and it'll transition to a phyllic and then potassic alteration. At the bottom of hole 6, we're seeing that, as you mentioned there, the phyllic alteration overprinting, and that's really encouraging as well, because that again is another vectoring element getting closer to the center, the potassic center. And so that's really what we're going to do.
Okay. Yeah, and so the moly is not really mobile. So in porphyries, when you see the moly grades really increasing strongly in a vector, especially pointing towards an IP anomaly or an MT anomaly, like you obviously have here at North Breccia, it's a pretty good sign you might be getting into the core of something. Obviously, you need to drill it. We need to see probably multiple holes into this thing to try to figure out what exactly is going on there. But looks pretty encouraging to me, Clayton. So let's talk about some of these other targets, because there's some new targets in here we haven't talked about previously, like the Devil's Slide target, the Olive Creek target, and of course we've talked about the Cuddy Mine target in the past. What's the plan for those in 2026?
Lots of the new targets that we drummed up this year. Frostfall is very exciting. It's contained within that Kismet corridor, as we're calling it now. There's a relationship between Kismet, the North Breccia, and Frostfall, and the whole property wide as a whole kind of transitions from a copper-moly environment in the southern portion of the property, and as you move north, it actually transitions into a gold-moly environment, so more gold dominant, and that is backed up by our geochem and some of our surface rock grabs, where at Frostfall we're getting up to 3-4 gram rock grabs, and over at the CM target you're also seeing up to 33 gram rock grabs as well, and that coincides with a large copper and soil anomaly, 2 by 1.5 kilometer copper and soil anomaly, We've got a large chargeability anomaly directly underneath the CM target as well. So that's a high priority target to go out and test. Frostfall is very a high priority target to go out and test as well. And also that transition that you're seeing is also very classical porphyry, where you're seeing a transition from moly closer to the heat source. And as you move away from it, you get into more of a gold environment. And that's very classical, where you see these epithermal gold veins expressing themselves at surface. And as you get closer to the porphyry source, you're seeing tungsten, then moly, then you get closer to the potassic quartz. So that's what we're seeing for the CM and frostfall targets. If we can intersect high-grade gold to go along with the high-grade copper, I think people and shareholders would be very happy. But that's just two more targets. We have Devil's Slide, which is just off of the kind of MT corridor that we've defined. We're seeing large gossinous boulders the size of trucks just lying there as well, malachite oozing out of them everywhere. So that's a really cool target that coincides with some of our ELF data. And then as you move down that MT corridor, you get into the Olive Creek anomaly. And so there's in our press release, there's a large intrusive anomaly, a chargeability anomaly at depth. And that's believed to be some sort of porphyry indication as well. So very classical signature, and that's a high priority target. It is covered in basalt in that area, but now that we know that we have this anomaly, that we would like to go out and drill test that as well. I mean, it's pretty much all you can do at this point is just to stick the drill bit in it and see what happens. So we'll try and do that. So the game plan would be, if we go out and we do, this year we do an expanded drill program. I'd love to do 5,000 meters in that Kismet corridor, where we're building onto the resource that we've already established from the 2025 program, which was 765 meters north-south in the subsurface by 150 meters east-west, and about 500 meters deep. If we add tonnage along that Kismet corridor by going up to Breccia, to the North Breccia, drilling down there, adding tons up and down there, that'll be a very good use of time and proceeds. And then we'll have another drill rig, exploratory drilling, going out testing CM. I'd love to do 2,000 or 3,000 meters over at CM, really test that out very well. And then probably another 2,000 meters at trying the other targets like Frostfall, Olive Creek, and then Devil's Slide. We also have there's another anomaly up in the northeastern portion of the property that we haven't completely constrained yet. We have some initial soil data and the MT and the ELF that we've done, and something's going on up there. It's just going to take us a little bit of time to unlock exactly what that is, but we know that there's another porphyry center off of our property as you move further to the north. So it might be related to that. We're not totally sure yet, but that's kind of the game plan for the drilling this year. Is one drill rig in the main core, and we've always wanted to build out the property from the center and moving outwards. And so we'll continue to do that, and then one exploratory drilling and testing those other targets if we can.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a full menu of drill targets.
Yeah,
you can be busy for 6 months easily here. So,
yeah.
What is the timing that we're looking at here? Is this a June start? Is this a May start? Look, I know you said 5,000 meters just in the corridor. I mean, obviously that could be expanded with good results, right?
Yeah.
But when does this kick off?
I would say as soon as the weather and snow allows. It was pretty dry down there up until recently. They just had a big dump over the last week or so. But temperatures are expected to stay a little bit higher. If all goes well, I'd say we're starting in May at some point. Ideally, I would like to start in May, but again, it's all weather dependent. If it's not May, then I'd say by mid-June for sure.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And last year you were drilling through the end of October or past that?
To the end of November, yeah.
You were till the end of November. Okay, so yeah, the season can go quite long. What about the CM target? Is that permitted, or are you still pending a permit there?
No, that's permitted. We're good to go there. We've readjusted a couple pads just based on some of the new data that we have. So we'll just have to. We're filing a new notice and firming that with the Forest Service. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's ready to go. So we can go out there and test that right away as well. And that's on Forest Service ground. So that's our only target on the Forest Service right now. But yeah, we got those permits last August actually, and the clock started ticking up. So we have 2 years on that. So lots of runway to go out there and test that target.
So look, great news release, great update. I couldn't be more excited for the 2026 season there in Idaho, not just from IDEX, but from the other participants and companies in the area. And I'm just curious what kind of conversations you might be having with people about Idaho, some of the things that are going on in the US here in 2026 in terms of copper and minerals.
Yeah, you know, from everybody we're talking to, everybody's very excited about a US-based copper story, and especially the US-based and copper. And you know, that's a big driver here. I think this belt is, you know, I think it's still in the very early days of people really recognizing and knowing about the belt in general. And despite everything that, you know, we talk about, and you know, we're kind of in a bit of a tunnel sometimes, and we think everybody knows about this, you know, Idaho copper belt, but it's, you know, as we get out there and tell the story more, we'll bring more eyeballs to it, more attention, and I think, you know, it'll start to get a lot more attention here, especially, you know, now that it's not just Hercules drilling, we're drilling as well. We have a follow-up program, Scouts drilling. I heard Rio's going to drill their, or going to be drilling their program. They may have already started. And, you know, there's going to be lots more work done in the area. So it's going to be active. And I know Chris has got a busy exploration season coming up himself. So that's really exciting. And, you know, for all of us, if, you know, we're all doing well, and it bodes well for the entire district, because I really do believe that this belt will be a major copper development in the United States one day. And it'll be something to work on for decades to come. And, you know, that's what large developers and producers want to see. They want to see something they can work on for the next 30, 40 years. So this copper belt is what they could work on for the next 30, 40 years, if not longer. So I'm excited. Investors that we're talking to are even more excited. And then the more and more people that, you know, for IDEX, you know, we're really pushing to expand our US shareholder base right now. We're taking we just brought in a great new group called Bunk Capital to assist us with more institutional investors from the United States as well, getting in those US institutions, going to New York, going to Chicago, going to Houston, taking those meetings. And that's really what all I'm going to be doing this year is just traveling, taking these meetings, getting the IDEX name out and the Idaho Copper Belt name out to, you know, US institutions really, and expanding that investor network down there. And, you know, we've already started to do that through the OTC, and we're seeing a big increase. I think now we have about 10% of our company is held by US investors. So that's exciting, and we'll continue to expand that. And that's a big focus for me this year, is just getting our name out there to US investors, not only institutional, but also the retail side as well. So.
Very good. Yeah. So, I mean, is that basically the plan here for the next few months, is a lot of marketing and increasing market awareness, or are there some other key items that investors can expect from the company between now and the anticipated start of drilling in May?
Yeah, it'll be a lot of, you know, boots on the ground, road shows, taking those meetings. I'll be doing that a lot. But we have other news. We'll have other news flow coming as well. We're actually working on a couple option deals from some of our non-core assets. You know, we're phenomenal explorers. We always have been. We've got a bunch of projects within the IDEX portfolio. We only talk about Freeze really because it's our flagship asset. But, you know, we've staked a bunch of other projects throughout the state, and we'll option those out to a couple other partners, and hopefully create some non-dilutive cash flow. And that'll actually be a really good little supplemental income and business for IDEX itself. And that way we don't have to go back to the market as often. If we can, you know, create $2 or $3 million worth of cash flow off of optioning, you know, one of our projects, then that's an ideal scenario for us. And all that money just goes straight back into the ground at Freeze, and we'll just keep building this. And we can do it organically, but you know, I think it'll be very interesting. So yeah, there'll be news flow not only from started drilling coming out in April, May, but we'll have option deals that we're going to announce. We'll announce some marketing partnerships. I'll be doing road shows, conferences, everything. So it's going to be busy.
Very good, Clayton. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no worries, Robert. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.